All right, let's talk about AI. It's here and it's shaking up, well, pretty much everything, especially our schools. So, what's the big question every teacher is asking? It's this: how on earth do we figure out what students actually know when a machine can whip up an essay or solve a tough problem in like 2 seconds? That's exactly what we're going to dig into right now.
And this quote, it really hits the nail on the head. The truth is, what a student hands in these days, it's not always a clear sign of what they've actually learned. But look, the goal here isn't to get into some high-tech game of cat and mouse, trying to catch every use of AI. No way. The real opportunity, the exciting part, is that we get to redesign our assessments, to create assignments that don't just test learning, but actually make it stronger. We can turn AI from something we're worried about into a seriously powerful tool.
So, that's the million-dollar question, right? How do we actually adapt our assessments? Well, it's not about finding one single magic bullet. It's more like a strategic framework, a way of thinking about when to bring AI into the picture and when to tell it to sit on the sidelines. And that approach basically breaks down into two main lanes. Think of it like a highway. In one lane, we've got the times when we have to restrict AI, to really see a student's foundational skills. And in the other lane, we've got the moments where we can totally embrace it, using it as a tool to push learning into some really cool new places. So let's start with that first lane, the one with the restriction. Okay, first things first, we need to establish what I'm calling an AI-free zone. This is that space for the essentials, for the work that has to be done independently. I mean, if we really want to know if a student has grasped a concept, we've got to see them work through it all on their own, without that digital co-pilot whispering in their ear. So what kind of stuff belongs in this zone? Well, a few things. First up, core knowledge. The stuff students just have to remember. Key dates, vocabulary words, basic scientific principles. Second, skills that are built only through practice, through sheer repetition, like learning a new language's grammar or getting quick at basic math. And finally, any task where AI would literally just do the thinking for the student, like checking every grammar mistake or running simple calculations. That's not learning, that's just outsourcing. And here's the really important part, the key action for teachers. It's not enough to just say no AI on these assignments. We have to be totally transparent. We need to clearly mark them as independent work. And this is huge. Explain the why. When students get that the whole point is to build up their own mental muscles, they are so much more likely to buy in and do the work honestly. Okay, so we've mapped out our AI-free zone. Now, let's flip the script and check out the other side, actually putting AI to work. Believe it or not, some tasks get so much richer and more meaningful with AI in the mix, turning it from a potential shortcut into an incredible learning partner. This is such a smart and practical way to do it. Check this out. Step 1, you actually start with AI. You give students an AI-generated explanation or answer to something. Then, and here's where the real work begins, you ask them to evaluate it. Is this thing accurate? What did it miss? Is the argument any good? And finally, you challenge them to make it better, to build a stronger case, or even to argue against what the AI came up with. See that? With one simple move, the focus shifts from just making something to critically thinking about something. And that leads us to this huge, fundamental shift in how we think about grading. We have to start assessing the process, not just the final product. I mean, since AI can spit out a perfect-looking paper, the real evidence of learning isn't in that polished final draft anymore. It's in the messy human journey of thinking that got them there. So what does this thinking evidence actually look like? Well, it can be all sorts of things. It could be their planning notes or a mind map. It could be showing their work, their reasoning steps. It could even be submitting earlier drafts with their own notes scribbled on them. Heck, even a quick 2-minute chat where they just explain their strategy out loud works perfectly. These are the kinds of things, the real artifacts of thinking, that you just can't outsource to a machine. Of course, the absolute best way to see a student's thinking is to design assignments that flat out demand it. The goal here is to create tasks that an AI just can't complete on its own because they require real, genuine disciplinary thinking. The kind of analysis and judgment that's unique to your subject, the stuff that can't be automated. And just look at these examples here. Instead of a generic prompt like write about a historical event, you could try compare two different historical interpretations of this event. See the difference? Or instead of just summarize this article, how about critique the author's argument and evaluate how reliable their sources are? Prompts like these force students to use AI as a research assistant or a brainstorming partner, not as the final author.
And you know what the best part is? You don't have to throw out all your old assignments and start from scratch. The strategy is actually pretty simple. Just take an existing assignment and add one disciplinary twist. Just one little element that requires a personal connection, or some critical judgment, or applying the idea to a brand new situation. That one small change can make all the difference in the world. Okay, but let's be real. None of this works if the rules are fuzzy. We have to be super clear. In the age of AI, every single assessment, every project needs to come with crystal clear guidance. We have to make our expectations totally explicit so students know exactly what they can and can't do.
This table is a fantastic template for that. I mean, look at these guidelines. For any given assignment, you should be able to answer these 4 questions. First, is AI even allowed? Second, if it is, how can it be used? Third, what part of this work absolutely has to be independent? And fourth, what evidence of your thinking process do you need to show me? Answering those 4 things right up front, that brings total clarity for everyone.
And here is a perfect example of what that clarity looks like in practice. It's simple, it's direct, and there's just no room for misunderstanding. A student who reads this knows precisely what the deal is. This is the kind of clarity we should all be aiming for on our assignments. So as we start to wrap this up, let's circle back to the core idea here. This whole approach, creating AI-free zones, assessing the process, designing smarter tasks, setting clear rules, it's not really about the technology at the end of the day. It's about protecting the one thing that education is all about, a student's ability to think for themselves. And that's really the ultimate takeaway, isn't it? The tools are going to change, the assignments are going to look different. And yes, our methods for assessment absolutely have to evolve. But that fundamental goal, cultivating deep, critical, and independent thinking, that has to remain front and center in everything we do, always.